Hi, I'm Brian, and this is Brian Today. 2024 has just begun, and I've decided to do something a little different this year. I've had some amount of presence on the internet since probably 1996. Little hobby websites. For several years, I wrote a board game a day, a board game review blog. I haven't done that in the last couple years, and I thought 2024 it was time to try something new, something different, and so that's what this is. Starting today, it is a show about all the things I like, talking to hopefully people who like the same things, and the side purpose of the show is going to be me getting used to some video editing, making the show better incrementally just to flex those muscles and learn those skills. So, hopefully, you stick around a little bit. I'm going to try to do it at least 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll see how that works. I thought I would start this first episode looking back at 2024 or 2023, specifically what has become one of my biggest hobbies, and that's comic book collecting. So we're going to start this first video talking about what my favorite comics of 2023 were, things that came out at any time during that year. Some of them are still continuing. You will notice that they are pretty much entirely, if I look around, entirely independent or just not from the big two companies. I read almost nothing from DC. Just my preference. I didn't really grow up with it. And Marvel, I do subscribe to a few books, but having come back to comics after like 8 or 9 years of not reading anything, I'm finding it difficult to find a place to jump in. A lot of these story arcs now, it's no longer just an adventure of the week. These 5 books are running one story for a year, and you have to read all of them to understand what's going on. I've been trying to catch up with House of X and Powers of X and all that stuff digitally, and they have a schedule of 7 books you've got to read. It's a little overwhelming. So, my collecting purposes, it's mostly independent stuff. Um, anyway, I try to keep it to 5 of my favorites, but I also have 5 honorable mentions I want to just quickly go through. The first one was a digital comic, which this year was released in a physical format. It is Barnstormers, which is a fun, if tragic, story of 2 people finding each other, um, traveling around cross country, Bonnie and Clyde style. If you like a period piece, beautiful artwork, just a fun read. It's only 3 issues if you pick them up. I think it's 6 if you read it digitally. A great series. Check it out. Next, this was a cartoon that came out just after I stopped paying attention to cartoons as a kid. Lately, because of Disney Plus and because I have 2 young children, I've been watching it and catching up. I actually like it a lot more than I ever thought I would. Um, and then they started releasing comics of it this year from Dynamite, Gargoyles. Again, I didn't know that much about gargoyles until I started catching the cartoon this year, and the comic came out at just right time. I think maybe the end of last year. But I've been loving it, reading it every week, or every month when it comes out. There's a spin-off also. It's a prequel series. Great stuff. Check out Gargoyles if you haven't already. Up next, the one comic I kind of kept with when I stopped was Fables. Loved Fables. It's a great series. I still have all the trade paperbacks. I didn't collect it issue to issue because the trades came out so frequently, and that was enough for me at the time. I love taking something that everybody knows and then just changing it a little bit in an interesting way. Fables certainly did that all the time, and I've been collecting the Fable story that's been coming out now. Also good, also interesting. This book has a taste of that a little bit, but it also kind of mixes up a little, I don't know, maybe the horror element to it a bit. And that's Briar, which is sort of a story of Sleeping Beauty. Some notes of that, but a lot of its own stuff. A great read. It's much darker and more grim than Fables ever got. I hope there's more of it. I guess I don't know. It seems like it could certainly have more issues. As it is, what did I get? 4. So hopefully there's more Briar coming up. Loved it. Up next, all right. So I used to teach English, and one of the stories I taught when I taught like the middle grades was The Giver. This book reminds me of The Giver in some ways. This idea that there's more to the world that's kind of being purposely hidden from people. This one sort of ties it together with some crazy religious zealotry and some wacky monster stuff at the end. That book is Chroma. Now, getting back into comics, when I did, I was sort of horrified to see how much some of them cost from month to month. Chroma, I bit at, even though $8 an issue. Like, I just thinking about how much I spent on Chroma now. But super good. It's about a society that has washed color out. And it's not like The Giver where they just can't process it or whatever the explanation is for that. Here they're like making sure that things just aren't painted with color. They're everybody's skin's very pale. They cover their hair. They do have to leave the community once in a while, and the outside world has color, and they have to deal with it that way. I don't want to give away too much. It sort of takes a weird turn. It's a great, fun, weird comic that has touches of that, the concepts within The Giver, but it's its own thing, okay? Very good book, 4 issues. I'm sure this has been collected. It's probably much more economical if you go get that. But Chroma. And lastly, Gospel. Takes place during the point where the Church of England is sort of eradicating Catholicism. But it's not really about that. It's more about a young girl who sort of fashions herself as a hero, and a young writer who writes folk tales about her and follows her around. In that setting, as religions are changing and things people have believed for so long are being banned or cast aside. Fun comic. It also has a sort of frame story set more in a modern day about an old man living by himself who's trying to prove to a social worker that he doesn't need to be put into a home for his own good by telling the story of these 2 characters who are themselves kind of inside of a story. It's got a lot of layers. The characters are all super likable. It's a great comic. Gospel. Moving forward, I gotta make sure I have all the names of the creators and artists. But those are my things to look out for. Those are my honorable mentions. My top 5 comics from this year, or comics that finished this year. All right, so probably number 5. This finished this year. The first issue came out, and then like months and months and months went by before anything else came out. And then the rest of the series came pretty quick after that. This is Eternus from Scout Comics. Now, Eternus is a comic featuring the Greek gods, the Greek-Roman pantheon. Specifically, Hercules is like the main character of it. It takes place when Christianity is starting to build and push out those old belief structures, but told from the opinion or point of view of the Greek and Roman gods, which is kind of interesting because they're aware of Christianity. They're aware of what's happening to them. It sort of tastes a little of like small gods or American gods, books like that that deal with god characters coping with a lack of belief or rising and changing belief structures. Um, it's a great story. The art is lovely. Again, I'm really bad at names, but all the people who worked on it, they did a great job. I loved the setting. I loved the characterization. I loved, I don't know, just the weird twist. There's a character who, she's a small, a blind girl that has a relationship with the Gorgons. We see Medusa on the cover here, um, who kind of acts like a sidekick character a little bit to Hercules, who is himself a reluctant hero in the story. There's a lot going on. It sort of hits those same taking something we know and changing a little bit beats that we see with Fables and all that. Eternus was a great read. I'm sure this has been collected. The main series itself is only 5 issues. Um, Check it out. Eternus, it's probably my number 5 favorite. Moving forward, this is still going. This is still wonderful. I am not a horror guy by any stretch of the imagination. And getting into comics again, it seemed like everything that was well regarded or that people were pushing in my local comic shops were either horror books or what a lot of the things that I've talked about here already are, which is post-apocalyptic scapes. Okay, almost everything else that you read. I read Hard Eyes, post-apocalyptic world. I read I don't know, just so many of them. Anyway, horror and post-apocalyptic landscapes. It seems like every comic that's out. This is no different, but super fun. Dark Ride, right? Dark Ride is about a theme park. So think your Disney World, except it's based on horror and satanic imagery. Um, it's a fun juxtaposition right there. Okay, whoever put this together, Williamson, Breslin, Lucas, um, really had, it seems like, a good feel for what a theme park like that is. Okay, what beats have to be there for it to feel real. Like it feels like it could be a real place. All the rides are over the top themed. Um, but the undercurrent to this is that the park is run by a family, um, a father who is sort of mysterious. Okay, he's the Walt Disney of the story, but he's not always visible. Okay, there's something about him without giving away too much, and it's hinted at from issue to issue. But really, the story focuses on his son. This guy who's in the family. He has a relationship with the park. Um, you can tell that maybe he's not super into it. Okay. He's got a daughter who is, or he doesn't have, he has a daughter, and a wife, and his relationship is on the rocks with her. He kind of shares custody with the daughter. Um, he has a sister, though, that's super into the horror genre. She's got a career for herself that extends beyond the park, so she's well known. And she ends up coming back. The relationship between the two siblings, in the face of this sort of growing mystery that has to do with the father, all in this creepy horror theme park setting. It's great. I'm so compelled by it from month to month. Um, and the story just keeps ratcheting up. I don't know how long the series is going to continue. If it's just going to be a continuing thing, then fantastic. I hope they have interesting directions to go with it. But so far, I've been loving the book. Dark Ride, I wasn't sure I would like it, to be fair, but I'm a big Disney nut, and so when it appeared it was Satan Disney, I was going to check it out, and I'm glad I did. So Dark Ride, pick it up. I'm sure there's a trade of the first part of the story arc out there now. Go look for it. All right, next. This is another one that started in 2022, ended in 2023. I like these goofy big concept things. 8 billion genies. It answers the question, what happens when everyone on Earth gets their own genie at the same time? They're all allowed one wish. And this plays like, it's written by, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Charles Soule, who has written a lot of the Star Trek High Republic or Star Wars High Republic novels. If you've read any of that stuff, he's written a lot of, very prolific. It's funny because it's like the creative team sat around and said, all right, well, what would happen if everyone had a wish? And then they just brainstormed ideas and then realized, well, what would happen is probably just all of these brainstormed ideas would come to pass. And then the comic becomes dealing with, all right, well, if all these ridiculous things happened at the same time, which ones win at the end? That's minimizing the story, but it's great. Most of it takes place for a good portion of the series. Takes place in a bar, where the bar owner wished, with his wish, that everyone in the bar was safe and no one's wishes could affect it. And so we get a lot of what's going on in the outside world, and then going back to the safe haven of the bar to see what the patrons of the bar have been doing all along. Eventually, it branches out from that. And there's things having to do with the barkeep that you find out later. I don't want to spoil it. But a great comic of just wish fulfillment and how that can backfire and how that can succeed, and where relationships save the day and where maybe they cause trouble. Wasted wishes and squandered wishes, and it was just super fun. You never really knew what the next issue was going to be. Some great visual gags in the art. I gotta say, 8 Billion Genies was a great idea. Well put together. One of my favorite reads since I've started comics again. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right. Two more then. All right. So this is my favorite ongoing comic currently, and it's just about to start back up. I bought this at a real lark when it first came out. Just took a chance on it. I saw the cover of the first issue. It's like an Andy Warhol painting like that, taking a pulp concept and putting it out there and not being afraid of it. And that comic was this Love Everlasting. All right. I think the pitch for this initially, and this came out in 2022, was this woman keeps on waking up every day in a new pulp romance novel. And that's just her life, just this constant renewing romance novel. It also has this weird, it's interesting because that's exactly what it is. She wakes up, she's in a life, she loves somebody that she can't be with, or she loves the wrong man, or there's men vying for her hand. Initially, the first couple issues are like 3 short snippets, and they all kind of work the same way. Oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to find this guy? And then some tragedy strikes, and she ends up getting killed just before she can fall in love or be with the man she likes. But then as it goes, there's like this sinister thread, all right? And you don't exactly know, all right, well, God, this is like the same story, except does she know that she's in the same story or not? And there's reoccurring characters, kinda, and I don't know. I read the first two issues and I'm like, what is going on with this book? There's something to it. It's so on the nose, but then there's something. All right. The first five issues are like that, but you get a little bit more and more, and you realize there's like a bigger overarching thing going on. There are persistent characters. There is two that seem to know they're in these stories. Um, and then after the first five issues, it paused. And then the next five issues, they decided to give us a single five-issue romance story featuring this woman, where she's in the story for longer than she's ever been. And this is a woman who it seems like she has partial retention of her memories from previous lives, or something about her situation. She like doesn't care that she is at first. Um, in this second five-issue series that came out in 2023, um, she really, you see some mental breakdown and her dealing with these concepts more head on. But still, she's not directly addressing everything like we, the reader, are. Like, what is going on? Why is she here? Who are these other people? Every time it comes out, I can't wait. There's a new one coming out. I think tomorrow, actually, as I say this, for Comic Book Day. Um, Great comic. I know that at least the first story arc and possibly the second are already out in collected editions. Love Ever After Love Everlasting. Fantastic. Um, love it. It's one of my favorites. I've gotten other people to read it too. It's great. All right. My favorite thing that came out in 2023. I am a huge, I don't want to compare this person to someone else before I even say what it is, but I'm going to do that. All right. One of the comic series that I was a huge fan of in when I was young to an adult is Madman by Mike and Laura Allred. Um, there's something about the clean lines in his art style, the sort of loose, poppy storytelling, which is also generally positive. It just has a general positivity to it that you don't find in a lot of stuff. Like I say, most of the comics are post-apocalyptic wastelands or horror things, or superheroes that are just always fighting the same people. I like a little positivity. I like lightness. Okay. This comic has that positivity, that lightness. It reminds me a lot of Madman, but it's its own thing. It's not that. That comic is Pink Lemonade. All right. Pink Lemonade is a story about a woman who's not exactly a superhero. She doesn't have a full memory of who she is. She's very offbeat. Um, she basically just wears this costume and rides a motorcycle and solves people's problems when she can. Is just generally a positive person. It's hard for me to explain what this is about. Um, she ends up interacting with a film producer company that wants to take her story and turn her into a big superhero blockbuster. To that end, she meets some other characters who she ends up helping out along the way, and they become her friends, kind of Dragon Ball Z style. Um, it is so fun and so light and so poppy, and the art is beautiful. Nick Cagnetti, I've become a fan of his a little bit. He doesn't have a ton of work. He did some stuff for Xeno, which is an anthology comic that's been coming out. But just following him online, love it, love it. I loved it so much that part of the problem, like you get the first issue, and it feels like the story's already going on. All right. And then I'm like, all right, well, I know before this it was on like a crowdfunding, and he self-published it. So I went and bought the first two that he self-published, and this is exactly the same story as the one that came out um, for mass release. And so that didn't help me. And I'm like, all right, well, it still feels like it's starting in the middle. So then I found out it was like a web comic. In order to read the web comic, um, like in a physical form, you had to buy this, which is the Pink Lemonade Holiday Grab Bag, which isn't currently being published, and almost no one has it online for you to buy. I had to hunt one down. Um, and then you find out there's like, you know, 2 pages of panel comics that explain the story up till then, and you didn't really miss too much. So don't worry about it too much. But Pink Lemonade, the story unfortunately is over with. You can get it collected, although again, the collection doesn't have all this pre-story stuff, which I feel like that's a dropped ball. But great comic. Very poppy, very fun, lots of silly characters. It's got sort of a sweet ending. She comes to terms with herself. Um, it's just great. If you love a Madman, or if you love, um, I don't know, Jet Cat by Jay Stevens, if you love just light, poppy, fun comics that have kind of a superhero-y bent, but really aren't about superheroes, Pink Lemonade, all the way. Definitely recommend it. Well, that's it for today on This Is Brian Today. I've been Brian. Hopefully, we'll see you next time where I'll talk about something else that's only of interest to me, and hopefully get a little bit better at putting together a video. So stay tuned, and we'll see you soon.